Wolverine has been around for a little over 45 years, and like most characters in the Marvel Universe, there have been multiple versions featured in alternate timelines and realities across the multiverse. The first version of Wolverine ever seen is far different from the many ones who followed, but not all are as strong as you might think. The Marvel multiverse is awash with all kinds of characters, with everything from an anthropomorphic pig version of Spider-Man to a planet where everyone is some kind of ape. For Wolverine, he's usually a savage beast of some sort, and most variations are just as deadly as the classic one found in the pages of Incredible Hulk number 181. Still, not every version of Wolverine can be said to be equal in terms of strength, savagery, or lethality. The versions of Wolverine found here are the ones you wouldn't want to piss off under any circumstances. If you do, try and buy him a beer and walk away, or bumping into one of those Wolverines may be the last thing you do. I am Kirsten from What Culture Comics, and these are 10 of the strongest forms of Wolverine. Number 10. Weapon X. During the Age of the Apocalypse event from the late 1990s, the characters fans had come to love were all replaced by the alternate universe doppelgangers who had lived during the so-called Age of Apocalypse. It all kicked off when Legion went back in time to kill Magneto, but screwed up and killed Professor Xavier instead. The resulting alternate timeline saw Apocalypse launching his assault on the world a decade earlier, and the resulting timeline was dark. Every character was different in this new timeline, and it would eventually be resolved through some follow-up time travel shenanigans carried out by Bishop. For Wolverine, he changed considerably and preferred to be only known as Weapon X. He was still a member of the X-Men, though the team looked quite a bit different than it does on Earth 616. Wolverine was far more feral, and he no longer had his left hand. He lost it in a fight with Cyclops, but could still pop his claws from the stump, making him almost as lethal as a typical representation of Wolverine. His ferocious attitude made up for the missing hand, and he was still as deadly as ever, but kicks off the top of this list as a result of his injury. Number 9. Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan comes from the darkest timelines in the Marvel multiverse, and when he was first introduced, he was far from strong or dangerous. He refused to pop his claws and hadn't done so for decades. This was due to him being tricked into killing all of the X-Men by Mysterio when the villains banded together to take over the country. When the Hulk gang killed his family, it was time to let Wolverine out of his cage, and he slaughtered the whole clan, including the Incredible Hulk / Bruce Banner, who was stronger than any time in the past. Old Man Logan was definitely strong, but he had some issues he didn't contend with in earlier life. His healing factor was significantly hindered by the fact that he was 197 years old at this time in life. Despite the infirmity, he was still lethal and insanely deadly to anyone who crossed him. While he didn't have the healing factor he possessed in his youth, he did have nearly 2 centuries of experience in being the best at what he did. While it may not be very nice, he was still pretty damn good at killing people. A lot of people. Number 8. Wolverine sans adamantium. It took some time before the readers began truly understanding the nature of Wolverine, but after a while it was clear that at some point in the past he was selected to have adamantium bonded to his skeleton. He was perfect for the experiment, seeing as his healing factor made it possible for him to survive. He also had some nifty claws in addition to the indestructible skeleton, but it wasn't clear how he got them until Magneto ripped the metal from his body. When that happened, it was revealed that a part of Wolverine's mutation involved 6 bone claws, which he could shoot out of his hands. You might think that a Wolverine sans adamantium wouldn't be deadly, but in reality, he was still as insanely strong and violent as he was before. He may have been even deadlier, seeing as he had a penchant for stabbing his bone claws into his enemies instead of slashing them as he'd done before. He did take a hit where his healing factor was concerned, but over time it returned. He took a lot more damage during this time, but once he could heal again, it was all-out war for the Canadian mutant. Number 7. Wolverine. Wolverine entered into the Marvel Universe back in 1974, and he quickly became a fan favourite. Despite not knowing much of anything about his past, his gruff demeanour and ability to dispatch almost any enemy with the ability to survive everything thrown at him made the fans flock to comic shops to buy whatever books featured him. In terms of strength, Wolverine is stronger than your average human for a number of reasons. His adamantium-laced skeleton grants him a great deal of durability, which makes it possible for him to lift an extraordinary amount of weight. His strength and durability are what make it possible for him to slash through almost anything he wants to cut. Normal strength couldn't slash through solid armour, but packs some serious strength behind an unbreakable blade, and that means Wolverine has no problem taking apart anything and everything in his path. Number 6. Feral Wolverine. Getting adamantium fused to every bone in his body was one of the most painful things any person in the Marvel Universe has had to endure. If you thought that was bad, imagine what it felt like having that same unbreakable metal forcibly removed through all of his organs. Not only did that hurt like bloody hell, but it also screwed with Wolverine's healing factor and sent him down the path to once more become feral. Wolverine has gone feral a couple of times in the comics, and when he gets this way, he ramps it up to 11. What's more, the adamantium was apparently holding back one of his mutations, and when it was taken away, it kicked into high gear and transformed him into a more animalistic version of himself. This was Wolverine in feral mode, but far worse than he'd been in the past. The Wolverine without adamantium feral version was far stronger than he was before he ever had the metal bonded to his skeleton. He lost almost all control over his actions and truly became a wild animal. Fortunately, he still wore clothes, but for the most part, he was a mindless killing machine. Number 5. Vampire Wolverine. One of the best aspects of the What If series of books was that each one created a new reality in Marvel's multiverse. In What If Wolverine was Lord of the Vampires, the world of Earth 9140 was introduced, and a lot of characters ended up dying, including Wolverine. In this universe, Wolverine comes in contact with some vampires, but he doesn't turn like a normal person due to his incredible healing factor. He still turns, but not in the usual way, as he drinks Dracula's blood and then ends up taking his place as Lord of the Vampires. Now, Wolverine is already one of the deadliest people in the Marvel Universe usually anyway, so adding a drive to feast on human blood, coupled with the fact that he is now the leader of a group of super-powered vampires, results in an undead murder force that was almost unstoppable. Vampire Wolverine was still the same person, but he adopted a far more malevolent personality. Still, he did have the same weakness as any other vampires despite his abilities, so he could be taken out by sunlight, and if a wooden stake could find its way to his heart, it would be bye-bye Vampire Wolverine. Number 4. Venom Old Man Logan. We already know that Old Man Logan is one of the strongest forms of the character, but he did have some limitations. The lack of potency of his healing factor and the fact that he lived in what amounted to an apocalyptic wasteland did earn him a higher place on this list. While he was deadlier than ever, Logan did still have his enemies. For example, Archangel hunts him down and captures him in order to exact revenge for his slaughter of the X-Men decades before. Despite being tricked into doing it, neither Logan nor Archangel could forgive the fact. To punish the aging mutant, Archangel sics Venom on him, only in this timeline, Venom was bonded with a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Logan winds up getting devoured whole by the symbiote-infected dinosaur, and while this might have been the end for most people, it was only the beginning for Old Man Logan. The Venom symbiote senses that Logan is a stronger host than the T-Rex, so it bonds with him. The addition of the symbiote's long list of powers, strengths and abilities made for a deadlier combination that had existed previously in the Marvel Universe. Number 3. Zombie Wolverine. Wolverine is already one of the toughest characters in the Marvel Universe, and with his healing factor, he can come back from just about anything. So long as a single cell is present, he can reform his whole body, but there's one pathogen he wasn't able to fight off, and it came in the form of a zombie plague. When the zombie virus hit, Wolverine was bitten by Captain America and Hawkeye, and while it would be reasonable to assume he could kill it off with his healing factor, in actuality it did no such thing. Wolverine was turned into a zombie, but his story didn't end there. He ended up losing his right arm in a fight against the Silver Surfer, but then he and a bunch of other zombified superheroes ate the Surfer's body, gaining the power Cosmic. Then, when Galactus arrived to consume the planet, Wolverine got in on the action once more and ate the World Devourer. This gave Wolverine and a few other lucky zombies the power Cosmic, and with it they travelled the cosmos, eating everyone and everything they came across. Technically, Wolverine is dead in this scenario, but he's also a cosmic power, so he's pretty high on the list in terms of strength. Number 2. Vereen. Under normal conditions, Wolverine's adamantium claws are some of the deadliest weapons on the planet, but they could certainly use an upgrade. They received one when the Red Right Hand, a cult who swore a vendetta against Wolverine, successfully summoned a demon to possess their foe. That's exactly what happened, and the newly possessed Wolverine was aptly named Vereen. But there's more to it than just a simply demonic ride-along. His claws changed with the possession, and he displayed a number of new powers, including fire breath, telekinesis, acid generation, and and mind control. His claws glowed with fiery intensity, and he became far more powerful than your standard issue Wolverine. When he was possessed, Wolverine's soul was trapped in hell, and Vereen went about the planet taking out as many of the people who were closest to Wolverine. Eventually, Wolverine managed to move his soul onto the offensive, and he began an internal battle against the unnamed demon. On the outside, all of the X-Men were necessary to take on Vereen, but inside his body, Wolverine's soul fight with a series of powerful memories, including one of Jean Grey as the White Phoenix, Nightcrawler, and others. In the end, the demon was burned from his mind and sent back to hell. Number 1. Phoenix Wolverine. The Phoenix Force is most commonly associated with Jean Grey, as she was its target on more than one occasion. Throughout the Marvel Universe, the Phoenix Force is well known as one of the most powerful entities, but it can't always have Jean, so it has taken on other hosts from time to time. Long after Jean Grey and her ilk had died, many eons in the future, the Phoenix Force remained, but it wasn't alone. In an issue of Thor, the present-day manifestation of Thor Odinson, and one involving old King Thor and his granddaughters in the far future, saw what became of the Phoenix Force. Old King Thor begins investigating what appears to be the death of all life in the universe, and as he's conducting his search, he comes across something he never expected to find at the end of space and time: Wolverine. Of course, it's not just Wolverine, it's Wolverine, the final host of the Phoenix Force. The character wasn't examined deeply, so there isn't a lot known about his strength or power levels other than the fact that he may be the last living thing in the universe, and he's paired with one of the most powerful cosmic beings in the Marvel Universe. We may not know much, but it still seems set in stone that Phoenix Wolverine is easily the strongest Wolverine of all. And there we go, the strongest forms of Wolverine. Let us know down below what your favourite form of Wolverine is. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, click that subscribe button. But for now, I have been Kirsten Ria, and I will see you in the next video.